2 years ago I made a brief summary why the American Shermans struggle around the BR 4.7 to 5.3. Now it is time to make some guides for each of these tanks, see how they perform and what their purpose is. Welcome to my new video that is a guide on how to play the M4A1 76mm. First let's have a look at the advantages and disadvantages of this tank. The M4A1 76 is a rank 3 American medium tank with a battle rating of 4.7 for realistic battles. This tank has a really high profile and you can't hide it very well. Most of the time the enemy will detect you with ease when you are not hull down. In town matches it can even happen that you are not able to hide your turret behind obstacles that usually cover other tanks completely. The armor of this tank is another disadvantage. The front plate can deflect some shots from enemies that can't penetrate armor over 100mm, but overall I would not count on that. In addition, the round shape of the hull just above the tracks is the biggest weak spot of the armor and can be penetrated by any enemy. When you angle the tank it gets even worse. The armor of the turret is slightly better, but strong guns can easily penetrate it. Overall I would not rely on the armor of the M4A1 76. The mobility is also not particularly outstanding. The maximum top speed is 38 km per hour on good terrain, and the reverse speed of -5 km per hour can sometimes get you into trouble. Now let's have a look at the advantages. With the M4A1 76 we finally get the 76mm gun and access to the M62 shell. You want to research this ammunition as fast as possible. This is a really strong gun with up to 149mm of penetration, and you can penetrate most of the enemies even frontally at your BR range. In combination with the stabilizer that comes with this tank, and a fast reload of up to 5.9 seconds, the M4A1 76 is a fearsome enemy. You also have access to smoke shells and you really want to take some of them with you. With -10 degrees of gun depression you can go hull down and hide the tank behind solid cover. The 12.7mm Browning heavy machine gun helps you to fight squishy enemies or planes. Knowing all the pros and cons of this tank, here are my tips on how I played it successfully. Tip number 1. Play as support. Having no armor that you can rely on is a huge disadvantage at this BR range. Especially the Russian tanks around that BR have some better armored tanks and some weird armor. I tried to brawl with enemies in down tier matches, but the round edges of the hull always got me destroyed. This is why I recommend to play as support, no matter if you have a down tier or up tier match. But there is a trick how you can fight enemies in close combat, that I will show you later in this video. When I play this tank as support I start from the 3rd row. You want to go to a position where you have cover for all of your sides and the enemy is not able to push your position. Imagine it like a U-shape where you have the possibility to back up and relocate if needed, or at least where the enemy is not able to push you right away. With the rather bad mobility of this tank you need some time to relocate. In addition you need to go hull down, or better fully tank down and hide behind solid cover. Normally I would move to my recommended key positions for the support route, but I had so many matches where the enemy just steamrolled my team and I was surrounded by enemies after a few seconds into the match. That's why I had to slow down and first let the match evolve. The M4A1 76 has a powerful gun for its BR, and you can shoot enemies with it at about 800 meters. So at the beginning of a match search for a safe position around the capture points, where the enemy can't push you, and use solid cover to protect your tank. It can also help when the position enables you to flank the enemy, but with the rather bad mobility of this tank it is not that easy to get to the usual flanking positions. When it is later in the match you can follow your team and support them from the 2nd row, jump from one hull down position to the next. Since the mobility of this tank is not the best you want to use some smoke shells to cover your path. The good thing about smoke shells is that you can shoot them. You can either cover your path or directly the position of the enemy. Whatever you do, always seek for solid cover. And that brings us to my 2nd tip. Use solid cover. As mentioned earlier in this video, with this tank you have no armor. Search for a hull down position and even go fully tank down. Only peek out of the cover if it is safe to do so. You might want to check if the enemy is looking at you, but since you are further away from the enemy, you can take more risks. Once you notice the enemy got the distance to you, relocate or wait until the enemy is focusing on someone other than you. Here the gun depression, the stabilizer and a good penetration value comes in handy. Although you have a bad reverse speed, you can use these advantages to take out enemies. Just peek and boom out of the cover for a few seconds and shoot at the enemy. With the stabilizer you don't have to wait until the gun stopped wobbling, and you can even shoot while you are already backing up into cover again. The good penetration value of the M62 shell allows you to minimize the time you expose your turret to the enemy even more. Just point and click at the enemy. Of course there are some enemies like the KV-85 where you have to aim for weak spots, but in the case you miss your first shot, the fast reload comes in handy. Tip number 3. Sidescraping. Well, unfortunately we don't always get maps where we can go hull down. In town matches or when you don't know a good position, use buildings or something else as solid cover. Keep the high profile of the M4A1 76 in mind. Still start supporting from the third row. You can check in third person view if an enemy is looking at you and peek and boom. But with the bad reverse speed, this only works when the enemy just shot or is focused on someone else. I had better matches as I used Sidescraping. Cover your weak front armor and your round sides of the hull with solid cover. And bait the enemy to shoot the back of your tank. Most of the time the shells bounce since the angle is too steep. And then you can use the time while the enemy is reloading to take him out or damage him. This also helps to negate the bad reverse speed, because when you have to get back into cover again you can use the forward speed. However, don't show too much of your front. The M4A1 is still very squishy, but Sidescraping worked for me even against Panthers. When the enemy knows that you want to bait him relocate, you have no chance to survive a shot that hits your front armor. Make sure not to expose your front wheel and only show the back of your tank. When the enemy wasted the shot, you can take the chance and use the stabilizer and forward mobility to your advantage. I hope I was able to give you some tips on how to play this tank and you liked the video. Like, subscribe and leave a comment if you want to, and check out my Discord server for more information and to connect with other players. Hope to see you in game soon.